Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our last Committee of Adjustment meeting for the 2023. I'd like to welcome everyone and like to call this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to order. As required under the Planning Act, a public meeting is being held prior to the committee making a decision on these applications. I'd like to introduce the committee members. I'm Steve Strangway, the chair for today. We have Sandra Richardson here. We have Betty Archer here. And via Zoom, we welcome Councillor Yeo. Welcome, Councillor. Staff in person, today we have Leah Berry, Manager of Planning. Leah. Catherine Evans, Planner 2. Mark LaHaye, Secretary Treasurer. Suzanne Murchison, Chief Building Official. And Charlotte Crawford, our recording secretary, who keeps us in line. And Susanna, welcome to you. Usually you're via Zoom, so to have you here today is great. So thank you for attending. First of all, I'd call for approval of the agenda. Betty and Sandra, thank you. And Councillor Yeo, in favor? Are there any pecuniary interests today? None noted. And the other thing I'm going to call for is approval of the minutes of the last meeting, which was Thursday, October 26th. Could I have a mover for that? Ms. Richardson? A seconder? Ms. Archer? Great. Okay. The committee will hear comments, gather information, and may ask questions to clarify statements made. The committee may ask and answer questions or redirect questions to the appropriate person. Please note that any information or comments given to the committee during this meeting is considered evidence. We will first hear from staff, then the applicant or his or her agent. We will then hear from any person in support of or from those who have questions, concerns, or are opposed to the application. Finally, the applicant or his or her agent will have an opportunity to respond to any of the statements made to the committee. Everyone who speaks to the committee is required to provide their name for the public record. So with that, we will move along to the first application, and Catherine Evans, our planner, is going to be busy this afternoon. I believe we have, 7 applications? So the first one is file number D20 2023 079. The location is 102 Sugarbush Trail, and it's in the geographic township of Fenelon. We'll turn it over to you, Catherine.
Thank you. The subject property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and is zoned limited service residential under the Township of Fenelon zoning bylaw 12-95. The subject property is within an established residential neighborhood located on a peninsula on the eastern shore of Cameron Lake. The property is irregular in shape and is the last property on the peninsula. The property currently contains a single detached dwelling, 2 sheds, a detached garage, and a boathouse. The proposal is to demolish the existing boathouse and construct a new, larger boathouse. Relief is required from section 3.1.3.1 of the bylaw, which permits a maximum lot coverage for accessory structures of 8% of the lot area to a maximum of 225 square meters. The proposed lot coverage is 476.1 square meters, or 6% of the lot area. Relief is also required from section 3.1.5.3 of the bylaw, which permits a maximum height for boathouses of 4.5 meters. The proposed height is 7.6 meters as measured from the normal water level. The boathouse will contain a lift that is approximately 6.2 meters in height. So the proposed height of the boathouse will accommodate the height of the lift plus mechanical elements of the lift and then a buffer to account for any boats that may exceed the height of the upper level of the lift when stored. The boathouse is to provide storage for 4 larger-sized boats, 2 Sea-Doos, as well as storage for accessory equipment and materials. The external staircase will allow for access to the upper portion of the boathouse, which will have no usable floor space. A catwalk that constitutes a portion of the boat lift would be used to access boats stored in the upper portion of the lift. The proposed boathouse will allow the property owner to store their watercrafts as well as boating accessories and materials in one location on the property. The proposed boathouse floor plan in no way lends itself to accommodating habitable space, and the increased height is proposed in order to accommodate the larger boat lift. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses and buildings and structures accessory to residential uses are permitted in the waterfront designation, with performance and siting criteria being implemented through the zoning bylaw. The official plan establishes water setback policies to provide sufficient space for separation to protect development from erosion hazards and to protect and enhance the ecological function of the water body. This policy states that a boathouse is permitted within this water setback. The photo on the left here was taken from the property's dock with the existing boathouse just off in the distance. And the photo on the right shows the existing dwelling, and the existing boathouse is within that yellow circle. The new boathouse is to be constructed in that same location. As per policy 20.3.10, provisions such as building and structure height limits are implemented to ensure buildings and structures do not exceed the height of the tree canopy or break the skyline horizon. Building heights should be measured from the lakeside, maintain a low profile, and blend with the natural surroundings. The subject property contains a stand of mature trees, so the boathouse will not exceed the height of the tree canopy. The boathouse is to be located amongst this stand of trees, so this proposed location allows the best opportunity for the boathouse to blend with the natural surroundings that exist on the property. The mature trees and the 2-story dwelling, which is located at a higher grade, will provide balance and ensure the boathouse is not a feature which starkly stands out against the horizon when viewing the property from the water or from across the lake. Looking to the zoning bylaw, a single detached dwelling as well as accessory structures are permitted within the LSR zone. The proposal complies with all provisions of the zoning bylaw, with the exception of the maximum lot coverage for accessory structures and the maximum height for a boathouse. The intent of establishing a maximum lot coverage for accessory structures is to control built form in order to maintain the residential character of a property, manage massing, reduce visual clutter, and to ensure that accessory uses remain subordinate to the primary, being the residential use. This slide contains photos of the existing accessory structures on the property, as well as a drawing of the proposed boathouse. The color of the outline around the photo corresponds with the sketch, identifying each of the structure's location. The photo in the bottom right corner shows the shed, which is to be removed, as per condition 3. The bylaw's provision for managing the total lot coverage for accessory structures uses both a percentage of lot area and a maximum number of square meters. Though the total ground floor area of the existing and proposed accessory structures exceeds the maximum of 225 square meters, the portion of the lot covered by accessory structures is only 6%. The proposed lot coverage complies with the maximum percentage of the lot that can be covered by accessory structures, and the increased square footage is not anticipated to negatively impact the character. The existing and proposed accessory structures are dispersed throughout the property, providing balance, and the arrangement of the accessory structures on the property and the dwelling being located at a higher grade ensure the residential use remains visually predominant despite the increased accessory structure lot coverage. Here we can see the floor plans for the lower and upper areas of the boathouse. The intention of establishing a maximum height for a boathouse is to prevent human habitation from occurring in the upper level of these buildings and to manage the bulk and massing of built form along the shoreline. The proposal constitutes a single-story boathouse, as there is no usable floor space in the upper area of the boathouse. It is completely open to the space below. The additional height is proposed to accommodate boat storage and a tall boat lift, not human habitation, and there is no plumbing proposed within the boathouse. Here we see a drawing of the proposed boathouse from a side perspective, with the water being on the left side of the image. The boathouse was designed in a way that accommodates the height of the boathouse, or the boat lift rather, while keeping much of the bulk of the building further away from the shoreline. The portion of the boathouse at the water's edge is approximately 3.8 meters in height. The tallest portion of the boathouse begins approximately 4 meters back. This configuration allows for the accommodation of the boat lift while keeping the tallest portion of the building further back from the water's edge, allowing it to blend more with its surroundings. This shows the location of the boathouse, and while it's not exactly to size in this image, it is just meant to demonstrate the configuration of the boathouse and its storage area, which is located on the southwest side of the structure. The proposed storage area is stepped back from the water's edge, located towards the rear of the boathouse, and this design again keeps some of the building's bulk away from the shoreline, decreasing building mass located directly at the water's edge. The photo on the left was taken from the subject property looking across the lake. The opposite shoreline is approximately 400 meters away from the subject property. As such, the boathouse will not overwhelm the shoreline or appear imposing from properties across the lake. The photo on the right was taken looking south to the south end of the property, being the end of the peninsula. The subject property is the last property on the peninsula, and the boathouse is proposed approximately 81.8 meters away from the closest neighboring lot. As such, the boathouse will not stand out when viewing the lake from adjacent properties. These photos show the existing boathouse on the property, and for comparative purposes, this boathouse here is approximately 7.27 meters in height. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. After the writing of the report, comments were received from Kawartha Region Conservation Authority stating they have no concern with the approval of the minor variance and that a permit will be required from their office. Additionally, a Section 59 notice will be required prior to the issuance of a building permit, as the subject property is located within the intake protection zone for the Fenelon Falls Municipal Drinking Water System. This condition has been printed and distributed to committee members, and it is to read that prior to the issuance of a building permit, the owner obtain a Section 59 notice from Kawartha Region Conservation Authority's risk management official. This condition will be considered fulfilled upon the provision of a copy of Kawartha Region Conservation Authority's approval to the Secretary-Treasurer. No other comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies. Comments were received from Charles Ty, resident of 97 Sugarbush Trail, providing that they have no concerns with the variance. No other comments have been received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Committee, are there any questions of Ms. Evans? Ms. Archer?
You, please, to Ms. Evans. Just for clarification, the existing boathouse and gazebo, are they interchangeable? They're the same building?
Through the chair, that's correct, yes. I believe on the sketch it is labeled as gazebo, but it is being used as boat storage. There is a boat in there currently.
This that we see in front of us is going to be destroyed. It's not going to be moved and become another outbuilding?
That's correct. It is going to be demolished, but I'll defer to the applicant for any further details on that.
Any further questions for staff? Just one quick one, Ms. Evans. This being, I believe, a wet boathouse, I don't see anything here regarding the Trent Severn Waterway and their officials. Does the owner need a permit from them, or where's that at?
To the chair, it's not an in-water boathouse, so they wouldn't need a permit from TSW, but they were circulated on the minor variance, and we didn't receive any comments back.
Great, thank you. Okay, the applicant, Mr. DeVore, do you have any questions or comments?
Good afternoon, Chair and staff. I have more than enough information to satisfy all the questions that have actually been raised to date. Thank you for this photograph here. This structure has had a bit of history. I was thankful enough that the previous owner had contact with the previous owner, and this structure was built somewhere around 1945, 1950. It was actually put on top of an existing wet slip. If you look on the picture to the left where the deck ends, that is where the physical concrete structure of the wet slip ends. There was, back in the 30s, a boathouse that was very similar to what we're proposing today. The previous owner had chose to remove it after seeing a beautiful picture in the Muskokas of what they wanted on their property, and decided to cover over the concrete structure and place this gazebo, quote-unquote boathouse, because it is wet. There is no floor in this gazebo, just for clarification. You can easily drive a boat in there. So since then, we've thought, all right, so we have a beautiful structure. We want to use it as a proper boathouse for a larger craft. We already have the inland waterway vis-a-vis a concrete structure holding it all back. There's approximately 4 to 5 feet of water inside the whole structure, including underneath that deck. That was confirmed. We removed the deck boards just to clarify that. So by doing that, we're staying within the property limits, which again, to support what Catherine had mentioned with regards to Trent Severn, all of the water, so to speak, is within private lands, and therefore TSW typically does not have jurisdiction because it's wholly contained within the property that they own. There's no projection of this boathouse onto the waterways secured lands or the federal lands as we would know them. So that's just a little bit of history on the structure. The height of the structure that we're proposing and the use is sort of taking a couple of things on the property that currently exist. We are removing another shed that's being used for a lot of the water toy storage during the off seasons. We're incorporating that into one. That will go back to either grass or vegetation of some sort, and it'll just sort of round out the property in terms of the aesthetics. The other benefit to this property, he doesn't have any neighbors that would be influenced other than those that are boaters traffic. So this does form a very unique position in terms of an approval for a structure of this size. We have also taken the liberty of discussing this with Kawartha Conservation prior to the application being submitted to ensure that we know that this far exceeds their 80 square meter of size that's required. In speaking with both the CAO and the director at the Conservation Authority, they have no issues with providing a staff recommendation to their board of approval to allow for this larger structure to occur. Again, if that was a non-starter, we wouldn't even have brought it to committee today. So we have gone through those checks and balances to make sure that if we do get committee's approval today, that will simply move into the permit process with conservation, understanding that there will be a board decision. It's our understanding that these are typically approved, and that it's usually more just to make sure we're doing it in the right locations. So with confidence, we're asking for obviously the review today and permission to reconstruct this very unique situation. Thank you.
Thank you for all those details. They're greatly appreciated. Committee, any questions of Mr. DeBoer? Ms. Archer?
Through you, please, to Mr. DeBoer. So that lovely structure is going to be destroyed?
Yes. It is actually in a state of disrepair. It looks pretty because there's lots of paint on it.
Any other questions for Mr. DeBoer? Okay. Thank you, Mr. DeBoer. Is there anybody else in attendance or online who wishes to speak to this application, to support this application? Anybody else online wishing to support the application? Is there anybody else in attendance or online who wishes to oppose the application? Okay. Committee, what is your recommendation? Councillor Yeo?
Move the recommendation as printed.
Okay, thank you. As amended?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and could I have a seconder? Ms. Archer? Now, I'm going to ask, because Councillor Yeo is online, just for each of you to vote. So, Ms. Richardson? Ms. Archer? Councillor Yeo? Great. And that approval is passed. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to the second application. And this is file number D20-2023-080. The location is 128 Baker Boulevard, and it's in the geographic township of Digby. Ms. Evans.
Thank you. The subject property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and is zoned rural residential type 2 exception 3 under the United Townships of Laxton, Digby, and Longford zoning bylaw 32-83. The subject property is located in an established residential neighborhood located on the northern shore of Head Lake. The property currently contains a single detached dwelling constructed in 2005, a carport, a detached garage with 2 attached lean-to structures. The proposal is to recognize the reduced front yard setback of the existing detached garage with attached lean-tos. Relief is required from Section 18.1B of the bylaw, which states that an accessory structure may not be located closer to a street than the required front yard setback for the zone in which it is located. The minimum front yard setback in the RR2 Exception 3 zone is 6 meters, and the existing setback is 5.4 meters. Relief is also required from Section 18.1B of the bylaw, which states that a garage may be erected in the front yard provided it complies with the setback provisions of the specific zone. The garage does not comply with the front yard setback and is located in the front yard. The garage was constructed with a building permit in 2023. However, the lean-to structures were added afterward, and when a third-party contractor measured to drill the helical piles which support the lean-to structures, the measurement did not account for the slight angle of the front lot line. As such, the west corner of the lean-to constructed on the north side of the garage complies with the minimum front yard setback, but the east corner of the lean-to encroaches into the required front yard setback. This photo shows the garage with the attached lean-to structures. The dwelling on the property has limited storage space, so the garage complies or provides rather necessary storage on the property. In addition to the interior space within the garage, the lean-to structures provide additional covered storage areas. Other properties in the area have accessory structures in the front yard, so the location of the garage is in keeping with the existing built form in the neighborhood. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses and buildings and structures accessory to residential uses are permitted in the waterfront designation, with performance and siting criteria being implemented through the zoning bylaw. Looking to the zoning bylaw, a single detached dwelling as well as accessory structures are permitted within this zone. The RR2 Exception 3 zone provides specific provisions regarding water setback, elevation of building openings, and permitted built form. The existing garage complies with all provisions of the zoning bylaw with the exception of the front yard setback and accessory structure location. The intent of the minimum front yard setback is to ensure adequate spatial separation between built form and the traveled portion of the street, and to maintain features such as sightlines and the character of the streetscape. The photo on the left shows the distance between the lean-to and the front lot line, with the front lot line being located amongst the vegetation on the left side of the photo. The photo on the right was taken from the road looking into the subject property. As one corner of the attached lean-to complies with the front yard setback, it is only the eastern corner which needs relief, and it is not anticipated that the 0.6 meter encroachment into the required front yard setback would be perceptible when viewing the property from the road. Additionally, there is a roadside ditch which provides visual and physical separation between the garage and the traveled portion of the road allowance. It is not anticipated that the garage will result in impacts to sightlines or the traveled portion of the road with respect to traffic or road maintenance. Additionally, other accessory structures in the area appear to have reduced front yard setbacks, so the garage in this location does not contradict the existing built form. This photo was taken from the opposite side of the property and shows the garage and its location in relation to the dwelling, which can be seen on the very far right of the image. If the garage complied with the minimum front yard setback, its location in the front yard would be permitted under the zoning bylaw. It is not anticipated that the garage being located in the front yard at its existing reduced setback will result in any negative impacts to the provision of amenity space or the character of the neighborhood. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. No comments of concern were raised by any of these circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Are there any questions for Ms. Evans from our committee? Seeing none, is the applicant either here or online? Okay. Is there anyone else online or here who wishes to speak in favor of this application? In favor of the application? Is there anyone else online or here who wishes to speak against the application? Against the application. Okay. Committee, what's your recommendation on this application? Ms. Archer?
As printed.
Okay, thank you. And a seconder? Ms. Richardson? Ms. Richardson? In favor? Ms. Archer? Councillor Gill?
In favor.
Okay, great, thank you. So the application is approved. Our next application is file number D20-2023-081, and it's at 40 McLeish Drive in the geographic township of Dalton. Ms. Evans.
Thank you. The subject property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and is zoned rural residential type 2 zone under the Township of Dalton zoning bylaw 10-77. The subject property is located in an established residential neighborhood located near the north shore of Young Lake. The property currently contains a single detached dwelling, 2 sheds, and a wooden lean-to structure that's attached to one of the sheds. The proposal is to construct a detached garage. Relief is required from section 14.1B of the bylaw, which permits an accessory structure to be located in the side or rear yard. The proposed garage is to be located in the front yard. Relief is also required from section 14.1B of the bylaw, which states that an accessory structure may not be erected closer to a street than the required front yard setback for the zone in which it is located. The required minimum front yard setback in the RR2 zone is 7.5 meters, and the proposed setback is 4.6 meters. The garage will provide additional storage opportunities on the property for items including snowmobiles, dirt bikes, tools, and gardening and lawn care equipment. The construction of the garage will allow for the removal of the existing sheds and the wooden lean-to structure, as the storage needs they currently address will be met by the new garage. As per condition 3 of the report, the 2 existing sheds, as well as the wooden lean-to structure attached to one of those sheds, are to be removed, as seen in this photo. When the sheds are included in the calculation of accessory structure lot coverage, their coverage, in addition to the coverage resulting from the proposed garage, exceed what is permitted by the zoning bylaw. Therefore, the options are to request relief to allow for the increased coverage or to remove the sheds. In speaking with the applicant, the sheds are proposed to be removed anyway, as they are in poor condition and will no longer be needed once the garage is constructed. As such, it was determined that a condition to remove the sheds was the appropriate route. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses and buildings and structures accessory to residential uses are permitted in the waterfront designation, with performance and siting criteria being implemented through the zoning bylaw. Looking to the zoning bylaw, a single detached dwelling and accessory structures are permitted within the RR2 zone. The proposal complies with all provisions of the zoning bylaw, with the exception of the location of the garage and the front yard setback. The intent of limiting the location of accessory structures to the side or rear yard is to ensure accessory uses remain subordinate to the primary use, being the residential use, to maintain amenity space in the front yard, and to maintain the character of the area. The photo on the left shows the front yard of the property, where the garage is to be located, and the photo on the right was taken from close to the front lot line, looking into the property towards the dwelling, again showing the location of the proposed garage. As the dwelling is larger and greater in height than the proposed garage, the primary use, being the dwelling, will remain visually predominant. The photo on the left here was taken from the road and shows the existing solid privacy fence along the front lot line, which also includes, it continues along the western side lot line. This fence provides visual screening when viewing the property from the road and from the neighboring property to the west. The photo on the right shows the dwelling and the surrounding yard space. Sufficient amenity space exists within the interior side and rear yard, allowing for outdoor recreation to continue to occur unimpeded on the property. The intent of the minimum front yard setback is to ensure adequate spatial separation between built form and the traveled portion of the street, and to maintain features such as sightlines and the character of the streetscape. In addition to the proposed 4.6 meter setback, there is an approximately 4.2 meter wide grassy boulevard between the front lot line and the traveled portion of the road, adding visual and physical separation between the proposed garage and the road. Additionally, the road allowance will still be accessed via the property's existing driveway, so no vehicles will be exiting the garage and immediately entering the road allowance. It is not anticipated that the garage will result in impacts to sightlines or the traveled portion of the road with respect to traffic or road maintenance. Additionally, there appear to be existing buildings and structures along McLeish Drive with reduced front yard setbacks, so the garage at its proposed location will be in keeping with the existing built form in the area. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems stating that they have no concerns with the minor variance as it relates to private on-site sewage systems. No other comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application, subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Committee, any questions for staff? Ms. Archer?
Just a quick question, please, through you to Ms. Evans. On exhibit, or Appendix C, rather, it's called existing shed. There's only mention of one. Is that one of the three, like are all three being removed, or is this a different shed?
Through the chair, that's one of the three, so the other two are directly next to it. It was included on the sketch because originally one of the sheds was to remain and the other two were to be removed, so they didn't include it on the sketch originally. But when we did the site visit, we did see the three structures. We had a conversation and it was determined that in the end they would all be removed.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Okay. Now, I understand Ms. Bai is here. Ms. Bai, would you like to add any further comments or have any questions? Okay, fine. Are there any questions for Ms. Bai? Okay. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Anyone online who wishes to oppose the application? Committee, what's your recommendation? Councillor Yeo?
As printed?
As printed. And a seconder? Ms. Richardson? All those in favor? Councillor Yeo?
In favor?
Ms. Richardson? And Ms. Archer? Your application has been approved. You're welcome. Okay, moving on. This is file number D20-2023-082, and the location is 12 Montgomery Point, and this is the geographic township of Somerville. Ms. Evans.
Thank you. The subject property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and is zoned limited service residential under the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 78-45. The subject property is within an established residential neighborhood located on the eastern shore of Shadow Lake. It currently contains a single detached dwelling as well as a detached garage. The purpose of the application is to facilitate the replacement of portions of the dwelling that have been damaged by flooding and the addition of a second story over portions of the dwelling that are currently one story. Relief is required from section 5.2F of the bylaw, which requires a minimum water setback of 15 meters. The proposal is to maintain the existing setback of 13.5 meters. Relief is also required from section 5.2J of the bylaw, which requires a minimum side yard setback of 3 meters on one side and 2.2 meters on the other side for a two-story dwelling. The existing setbacks of 4.3 meters from the north property line and 1.75 meters from the south property line are to be maintained. The portion of the dwelling to be replaced is closest to the water, represented in yellow as well as blue hatching on the sketch. The pier footings under this portion of the dwelling have been damaged by flooding in the past. The replacement of this portion of the dwelling will maintain the same footprint as what exists today and will be constructed on a foundation instead of piers to prevent damage to the structure. The existing decks are to be removed and not replaced. This photo shows the dwelling as it exists today. The proposal involves adding a second story onto portions of the existing dwelling that are currently one story. As a result, the entire dwelling will be 2 stories, providing additional living space to better accommodate the property owners as well as family and friends. The neighborhood consists of a mixture of 1- and 2-story dwellings, and as such, the proposal is not out of character with the existing built form in the area. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses and buildings and structures accessory to residential uses are permitted in the waterfront designation, with performance and siting criteria being implemented through the zoning bylaw. The official plan establishes water setback policies to provide sufficient spatial separation to protect development from erosion hazards and to protect and enhance the ecological function of the water body. The existing dwelling is set back 13.5 meters from the water. and the proposed development will maintain this setback with no further encroachment proposed. As such, it is not anticipated that the proposal will impact the existing shoreline conditions. Additionally, the proposal to construct the dwelling on a foundation instead of piers will help to protect the dwelling from erosion hazards. The property owners have also had a professional complete waterproofing and drainage improvements to the property in order to direct water away from the dwelling. Looking to the zoning bylaw, a single detached dwelling and accessory structures are permitted within the LSR zone. The proposal complies with all provisions of the bylaw with the exception of the minimum water setback and the minimum side yard setback. The intent of the minimum water setback is to protect built form from natural hazards, to improve water body health, and to provide sufficient space for the infiltration of stormwater runoff. These photos show the existing setback between the dwelling and the shoreline, and the proposal will maintain the footprint of the existing dwelling, including the existing water setback, with no further encroachment proposed. It is not anticipated that the proposal's reduced water setback will negatively impact infiltration or alter the existing shoreline conditions. The purpose of an interior side yard setback is to manage massing and privacy issues and to provide sufficient space for lot drainage, access between front and rear yards, and building maintenance. These photos show the side yard with this corner of the dwelling here requiring relief. So it's this corner. That corner of the dwelling has a setback of 1.75 meters. The existing footprint will remain as it is today. The dwelling complies with the setbacks for a one-story dwelling, but as the proposal is to add a second story for which the zoning bylaw requires a larger setback, relief is required. The dwelling does not directly abut the dwelling on the neighboring property, and therefore no impacts to privacy are anticipated as a result of the second-story addition. The existing setback provides adequate space for drainage and allows for unimpeded access between the front and rear yard and room for carrying out any required building maintenance on this side of the dwelling. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage system stating that, based on the proposal for construction, the minimum required clearance distances to the sewage holding tank will be maintained. However, the dwelling will be increasing in size, and further sewage system review would need to be conducted to confirm capacity of the existing holding tank. As requested by the supervisor, a condition has been included pertaining to approval for sanitary waste disposal. No comments of concern were raised by any of the other circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Committee, any questions of staff? Ms. Archer?
Through you to Ms. Evans, please. The flooding that damaged the building initially, is it from like water from the lake or was it from storm water?
I think I'll defer to the applicant on that question to give a bit of history of the flooding that did occur. I do know that the flooding damaged the piers. It didn't actually go into the dwelling. So the damage that occurred to the dwelling was because those foundational piers were damaged and then things shifted, so floors were damaged, things like that. But in terms of the history of the dwelling, I'll defer to the applicant.
Any further questions for staff? Okay. Is the applicant here? Ms. Chandler?
How are you today?
Do you have any questions or comments? You did hear the question from Ms. Archer about the nature of the flooding.
Yes, quite a few years ago, there was an issue with the lock system. They opened up the lock at Norland and didn't at Coboconk, and the whole lake raised about I don't know, 4 or 6 feet overnight. And actually, the city did offer funding to the people on the lake to fix any issues. So there was, it's certainly a recorded event. So that was a majority of the damage. Some of it was through, I think, my husband might be able to speak to that better, but just once it began to erode, then the natural water coming through continued it, and there was a drainage ditch put in place to accommodate the extra water that was running through at the time.
So was that a one-time event then?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any further comments or questions with regard to your application?
Nope.
Okay. Staff, any committee, any further questions? Councillor Yeo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, just as a point of clarification, there are no locks in Coboconk and Norland. They're dams. And what happened in that instance was a combination of Trent Severn Waterway letting their normal amount of water down, along with that, the actual Beaver Dam in the north of Beaver Lake actually broke, and that caused the water to come up. And the applicant is right, it came up well over 4 feet in one 12-hour period, and that caused a lot of damage. But it was, in fact, mostly caused by a beaver dam.
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it greatly. Any further questions for Ms. Chandler? Okay. Is there anyone else online wishing to speak to this application in support of the application? In support. Is there anyone else online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application. Committee recommendation? Ms. Archer?
I just have one further question, please. The number 3 condition about the Ontario Building Code getting the sanitary waste disposal for within 24 months anyway, it's the same time period as they have to get their first building inspection. If there's a holdup in getting that number 3, will that put number 2 at risk?
Directed to staff, that question?
Through the chair, the building code will not allow us to issue the building permit if the building permit is subject to the sewage system being altered. So one goes hand in hand with the other. So it will be, sewage system permit has to be in place first before we can issue the building permit. Does that make sense and answer your question?
So if you don't get the approval on the waste disposal thing for, say, 12 months, this number 2, the first building inspection has to be done within 24 months of our decision, so that only gives them 12 months to get that far, is that right?
That's correct. Both of them have to be done within the 24 months from the decision.
If they didn't get the permission from the OBC or whatever, for 23 months, does that just give them 1 month then to get the permit and to get the first building inspection?
That would be correct.
Is that wise? Should they be different timeframes?
There shouldn't be, because usually people are doing them in tandem anyway.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Okay, committee, where are we at? Recommendation?
I think we made the motion.
That's what I was just wondering. I think we're at the point of voting, am I correct? Okay, Councillor Yeo?
In favor?
Ms. Richardson? And Ms. Archer? Your application is approved. We're moving on, and this is file number D20-2023-083, and the location is 251 Snug Harbor Road, and it's in the geographic township of Fenelon. Ms. Evans.
Thank you. The subject property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and is zoned rural residential type 3 under the Township of Fenland zoning bylaw 12-95. The subject property is located within an established residential neighborhood located on the eastern shore of Sturgeon Lake. The property currently contains a single detached dwelling and an attached garage. Or a detached garage, rather. The proposal is to remove the existing attached waterside deck and construct a new deck. Relief is required from section 13.2.1.3E of the bylaw, which requires a minimum water setback of 15 meters. The existing setback of the deck is 11.4 meters, and the setback of the proposed deck is 11 meters. Just a note on the sketch in Appendix C, the label should read 11 meters, not plus or minus 11 meters. The notice of decision will reflect the value of the precise relief requested, and therefore the plus or minus will be removed. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses and buildings and structures accessory to residential uses are permitted in the waterfront designation, with performance and siting criteria being implemented through the zoning bylaw. The official plan establishes water setback policies to provide sufficient spatial separation to protect development from erosion hazards and protect and enhance the ecological function of the water body. It is not anticipated that the proposed additional encroachment from the existing 11.4 meters to the proposed 11 meters will impact the existing condition of the shoreline. Looking to the zoning bylaw, a single detached dwelling as well as accessory structures are permitted within the RR3 zone. The proposal complies with all provisions of the zoning bylaw with the exception of the minimum water setback. The intent of the minimum water setback is to protect built form from natural hazards, improve water body health, and to provide sufficient space for the infiltration of stormwater runoff. The photo on the left shows the existing deck, and the photo on the right shows the existing setback between the deck and the shoreline. The new deck will be located 0.4 meters closer to the shoreline than what exists today. It is not anticipated that this encroachment will result in negative impacts or alter the shoreline conditions that exist today. Additionally, as the proposed deck is to be approximately 1.6 meters above the ground, the raised nature of the deck could potentially mitigate impacts from flooding if they were to occur. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. No comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the condition of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Evans. Committee, any questions for Ms. Evans? Okay, no questions. So is the applicant online?
I am.
And you are, ma'am, your name?
Sorry, Kayla Chunga. We're the contractor with iHome Prestige Luxury.
Okay, welcome, and we're glad to have you here today. Do you have any comments or questions with regard to the application?
No, I think Catherine got it all there.
Great. Committee, any questions for Kayla? Okay. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of the application, Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition? Committee, recommendation? Ms. Archer? As printed. Seconded by Councillor Yeo. Ms. Archer? Councillor Yeo?
In favor?
And Ms. Richardson. Great. Your application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Moving right along. The next application is file number D20-2023-084, and it's 236 Francis Street East in the geographic township of Fenland. Catherine.
Thank you. The subject property is designated residential and special policy area 3, being the Sturgeon Lake floodplain area under the Fenland Falls secondary plan, and urban settlement area under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan. The property is zoned rural residential type 2 under the Township of Fenland zoning bylaw 12-95. The subject property is within an established residential neighborhood located on the eastern shore of Fenland River. The property currently contains a single detached dwelling, 2 sheds, a houseboat that is stored on the property, a barrel sauna, and a shipping container that is to be removed. The proposal is to construct a detached garage. Relief is required from section 3.1.3.2 of the bylaw, which permits a maximum height of 5 meters for accessory structures. The proposed height is 5.7 meters. Relief is also required from section 3.1.3.3 of the bylaw, which permits a maximum of 3 accessory structures on a lot in any class of residential zone. The proposed garage constitutes the 5th accessory structure on the lot. The dwelling on the property has limited storage space, so the proposed garage with its increased height would provide enhanced storage options and enclosed vehicle parking on the property. Additionally, the garage will replace the storage that is currently being provided by the shipping container, providing a storage option that is more permanent and in keeping with the aesthetic of the existing build form. The subject property is designated residential under the Fenland Falls secondary plan. A variety of dwelling types, as well as accessory buildings and structures, are permitted within this designation. The shoreline of the property is within the Special Policy Area 3, being the Sturgeon Lake floodplain area. However, the proposed garage is outside of this area. The property is within the floodplain hazard, being the 120-meter buffer along the shoreline. As per the Fenland Falls secondary plan, an environmental impact study or other appropriate study shall be required for all development proposals on or abutting lands identified as environmental constraint area. As per the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan, the city, in consultation with partner agencies, shall identify the appropriate scope or study area for each required study. Staff have discussed the matter with our consulting ecologist and have determined that an environmental impact study or other study is not required for this proposal. Based on the location of the proposed development, the proposed footprint, and the limited natural features on and adjacent to the site, staff and the consultant feel it is reasonable not to require a study and that the proposal is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the secondary plan and the official plan. Looking to the zoning bylaw, a single detached dwelling as well as accessory structures are permitted within the RR2 zone. The proposal complies with all provisions of the zoning bylaw with the exception of the maximum height for an accessory structure and the maximum number of accessory structures. The purpose of a maximum height for an accessory structure in a residential zone is to ensure the accessory use is visually subordinate to the primary use, being the residential use, and to maintain the residential character of an area. A detached garage is permitted in the front yard on a property that fronts on a navigable waterway. Additionally, the garage complies with the required front and side yard setbacks. The photo on the left was taken from the road looking towards the subject property, and the photo on the right was taken from the proposed location of the garage looking back towards the front lot line. There is a grouping of mature vegetation between the front lot line and the proposed garage location, limiting the visibility of the garage and its increased height from the road, if any at all. Additionally, a line of mature vegetation along the side lot line will limit the visibility of the garage from the neighboring property. The proposed garage will be adjacent to the garage on the neighboring property and will not directly abut the neighboring dwelling. So it is not anticipated that the garage at its proposed height will result in any massing or privacy issues. On this slide, we have the sketch and the outline around the photos of the accessory structures correlate with their color and location on the sketch. So here we can see the houseboat, which is stored on the property, the proposed garage, and the shipping container. And here we can see the 2 sheds as well as the barrel sauna. The intent of establishing a maximum number of accessory structures is to control built form in order to maintain the residential character of the property, manage massing, reduce visual clutter, and to ensure that accessory uses remain subordinate to the primary use. The existing and proposed structures are evenly dispersed throughout the property, reducing any visual clutter or massing impacts. Additionally, the proposal complies with the maximum lot coverage for accessory structures. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the right-of-way. After the writing of the report, comments were received from Kawartha Region Conservation Authority stating they have no concerns with the approval of the minor variance and that a permit will be required from their office. KRCA has determined that the subject property is in an area of known karst, that being a provincially significant natural hazard feature. The presence of this feature is to be addressed through the KRCA permitting process. No comments of concern were raised by any of the other circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application, subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Evans. Committee, questions of staff. Ms. Archer.
Another question, please. It was on the last one, and I was going to ask, and I didn't, but I see it in this, and maybe it's in all of them. But the variance is minor in nature. The function has no impact on the function of the municipal right-of-way with respect to access. Where is the municipal right-of-way on this property? I didn't see one on the last one either.
Through the chair, that's referring to the road. So no impact to the road with respect to access, drainage, streetscaping, and maintenance.
It is a municipal road. It's not a right-of-way, right?
It is a municipal road, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for staff? I have just one. I noticed there's a houseboat being stored there. Is that considered an additional unit on the property, or is that just simply being stored there for the winter time?
Through the chair, my understanding is that it's being temporarily stored there on the property.
So that would be like any other waterfront resident who has put their boat away for the winter and has just parked it there.
To the chair, that's correct.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, now I understand we have the owner, Mr. Miller, online. Are you there, Mr. Miller?
I am here.
Okay, we can hear you, but we can't see you. Oh, there you are. Great.
Hi.
Mr. Miller, did you have any questions or comments?
No, nothing to add.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant from committee? Okay. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in favor of the application, in favor of the application? Is there anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition. Okay. Committee, recommendation? Ms. Richardson.
As recommended by staff.
As recommended by staff. A seconder? Councillor Yeo. Ms. Richardson?
In favor.
Okay. Councillor Yeo?
In favor?
And Ms. Archer?
In favor.
Your application is approved, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least, our last application is file number D20-2023-085, and this is 22 Lakeland Road in the township of Verlem. Ms. Evans, final one for the day.
Thank you. The subject property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and is zoned Residential 1 under the Township of Verulem zoning bylaw 6-87. The subject property is within an established residential neighborhood located on the northern shore of Sturgeon Lake. The property contains a single detached dwelling, a detached garage with an additional residential unit, or ARU, on the second story, a second detached ARU, a boathouse, 2 sheds, a gazebo, and an in-ground pool. The proposal is to recognize an existing additional residential unit. Previously, a park model trailer had been used as a dwelling unit on the property for approximately 20 years. A building permit was issued to allow for an addition to the trailer, and this work has resulted in the structure complying with the definition of a dwelling unit. The structure now constitutes the third dwelling unit on the property and the second detached ARU. The purpose of the variance is to recognize the location of the ARU as well as its status as the second detached ARU in order to close the building permit. The subject ARU, as well as the ARU located above the garage, are used as extra living space to accommodate the property owner's family and friends. Looking to the official plan, low-density residential uses are permitted within the waterfront designation, with performance and siting criteria being implemented through the zoning bylaw. An ARU is permitted as of right in addition to the primary residential unit in single detached, semi-detached, or townhouse dwellings, as well as in an accessory building or structure on lots associated with these dwelling types. Looking to the zoning bylaw, a single detached dwelling and accessory structures are permitted within the R1 zone. The proposal complies with all provisions of the zoning bylaw with the exception of accessory structure location, front yard setback, and number of detached additional residential units. The intent of limiting the location of accessory structures to the interior side or rear yard is to ensure accessory uses remain subordinate to the primary use, to maintain adequate amenity space in the front yard, and to ensure the property is in keeping with the character of the rest of the neighborhood. These photos show the existing dwelling from different angles, as the primary dwelling is larger than the ARU and the other existing accessory structures on the property. The dwelling remains visually predominant. These photos show the subject of the minor variance being the ARU. Due to the size of the property, there is a significant amount of amenity space in all yards, and as such, the location of the ARU does not detract from the property's amenity areas. These photos were taken from the road looking into the subject property. Due to the mature vegetation that separates the property from the road, the view of the ARU from the road allowance is very limited. Other properties in the area have accessory structures in the front yard, so the location of the ARU is in keeping with the existing built form in the area. The intent of the minimum front yard setback is to ensure adequate spatial separation between built form and the traveled portion of the street, and to maintain features such as sightlines and the character of the streetscape. The general provisions section of the bylaw contains provisions establishing minimum setbacks from the center of a road allowance. The street centerline setback appears to have been written that on the premise that should a road allowance be of a non-standard width for its classification, built form will be adequately set back from it in the event the municipality decided to take a road widening. As Lakeland Road is not a provincial highway or a county road, for the purposes of the centerline setback, it is classified as other street. The required setback from the centerline of the road allowance is 10 meters, plus the minimum front yard setback, being 7.5 meters. It is unlikely the municipality would pursue road widenings in this vicinity, given the width of the existing road allowance, being approximately 20 meters. In addition to the existing 4.4 meter setback from the front lot line, there is approximately 6 meter wide grassy boulevard which separates the property from the traveled portion of the road allowance, creating visual and physical separation between the ARU and the road. It is not anticipated that the ARU in its current location will result in impacts to sightlines or the traveled portion of the road with respect to traffic or road maintenance. The intent of permitting only one ARU to be within a detached accessory structure is to promote gentle intensification within residential neighborhoods whilst maintaining the lower density character of existing development. The photo on the left shows the detached garage, which has an ARU on the second level, and the photo on the right shows the ARU, which is the subject of the minor variance. 3 dwelling units are permitted as of right within the R1 zone. As such, this property does not exceed the permitted number of units. The accessory structures on the property comply with the maximum lot coverage for accessory structures and are dispersed throughout the property, so there's no issue with visual crowding rather. Due to the property's size and the visual screening from the street provided by mature vegetation, the 2 detached ARUs and their existing arrangement on the property do not contribute to a level of intensification that detracts from the low-density character of the area. Additionally, the property contains an abundance of parking space in addition to what is provided in the existing garage, so no issues associated with parking of vehicles are anticipated. There are no anticipated impacts on environmental features, neighboring properties, or the function of the municipal right-of-way. Comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems stating that the ARU in the second detached accessory structure has been constructed without the benefit of a sewage system permit or approval. The ARU has been connected to an existing sewage system on the property. However, this system does not have the available capacity to support the ARU and will not provide appropriate waste treatment for this connection. In order to consider the ARU for permanency on the property, a new sewage system to support the structure would be necessary. As requested by the supervisor, a condition has been included pertaining to the approval of sanitary waste disposal. No comments of concern were raised by any of the other circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Committee, questions for Ms. Evans? Ms. Archer.
Through you, please, to Ms. Evans. I know you did say, I think I heard you say that the accessory buildings percentage of lot coverage is fine, but is there no limit to the number of accessory buildings? There seems to be an awful lot of them here.
Through the chair, not in the Township of Verulam zoning bylaw. In other zoning bylaws, there's a maximum percentage or maximum number of square meters as well as a maximum number, but in Verulam, there's just the percentage.
Ms. Richardson.
Just for, excuse me, just for clarification, there was a building permit issued for the ARU, but no septic permit issued?
Okay, through the chair to the member. There has not been a building permit issued for the addition to the park model trailer. There has been building permits and ARU dealt with in the garage. They're 2 separate buildings.
Ms. Richardson?
So follow up, so will the applicant have to seek a building permit for this second one with the addition to the trailer?
Through the chair, yes, we have a pending application and pending registration for the 3rd unit. We've just been waiting for this application to get here.
Any further questions? Okay. Now, I understand we have the applicant online. Is the applicant there?
I am, Mr. Chair.
And your name?
My name is Celeste Phillips, and I'm a land use planning consultant.
Okay.
And I'm speaking to you on behalf of the owners, David and Susan Scandifio.
Do you have any comments or questions with regard to the presentation?
Fabulous presentation. Just a few comments, if you allow me a minute or two. I did want to mention that the property was purchased by the Scandifios in 2021. And when they purchased the property, it had the main house and the 2 accessory residential units. And as the committee knows, the province and your City of Kawartha Lakes official plan permits 3 dwelling units on the property, but the expected format is 2 dwellings in one building and a third in a separate building. So in this case, there's the main house. There's the legal, not illegal, legal accessory residential unit over the garage. And then the third unit, which is located in that renovated park model trailer. Now, my understanding may be a little bit different than what staff are saying. I understood that a building permit was issued for the park model trailer renovations. And it was only when staff were closing out that permit that it came to the staff's attention that this third dwelling unit has not legal status. So as mentioned, the owners wish to legalize the existence of that third dwelling, which has been there for over 20 years. The closest neighbor is about 60 to 80 meters away. It is quite a large property. It's, I think it's about 1.5 acres. So there's no evidence of crowding, as mentioned in the presentation. And my clients fully understand the need to improve or enlarge the septic system, and they're exploring options to do that, and they're committed to do that. And I agree with your staff's recommendation that the application before you meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Appreciate it. Any comments with regard to Ms. Phillips' comments, Ms. Richardson?
Sorry, through the chair. This process started as an enforcement file back in March of 2021. And at that time, we recognized that this addition had been put on without a permit. We were there to finalize the garage at the time, and I think in association with the sale. And we opened an enforcement file, started the process of trying to get this legalized. The application was applied for in March of 2021. However, it's been stalled with the non-compliant zoning since that date. So, no, it has not been issued.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that. So, Ms. Richardson, you are comfortable with where we're at with this application and proceeding with it?
Through the chair, yes. We've been anticipating this for 2 years, so we're very excited.
Great. Ms. Phillips, anything further?
No, thank you for your time today.
Okay. The committee, any further questions for Ms. Phillips? Okay. Is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of the application, Is there anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application, Committee, I'm looking for a recommendation. Ms. Archer.
As printed.
As printed. A seconder. Councillor Yeo. Ms. Archer.
In favor.
Councillor Yeo.
In favor.
And Ms. Richardson. Great. Your application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That brings us to the end of the applications. Now, just one question for Ms. Murchison, since we have her here. I find it interesting that there's a real push to add additional residential units, and we're certainly approving them in garages and standalone and so on. And yet I notice on boathouses, we're still very much sticking to the no occupancy on a second floor. Any comments or thoughts on that?
Through the chair, this is actually a question for Ms. Barry.
Ms. Barry?
Sure, thanks for the question. Yeah, most often, but not always, boathouses are located in floodplains. And so there is a real potential for damage to property, damage to life, that the policies and the zoning provisions are set up to protect against. Now, of course, there are occasions where there are boathouse-type structures that are essentially accessory buildings that are off the shoreline and outside of the floodplain. And so in cases like that, we would review the potential for human habitation on a case-by-case basis. And if relief was needed because of, a definition, let's say, quirk in that particular zoning bylaw, then we would proceed with a Planning Act application accordingly. So it's not sort of a one-size-fits-all, and it's more about what the structure is, aside from what it might be called, but where it's located on the property and what hazards it may be impacted by.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. We have no deferred applications. Other business. Now, one thing under other business, Charlotte, you distributed a list of the meetings coming up for next year. And once again, I take it we're the fourth Thursday of every month, with the exclusion of December. Perfect. Okay. Ms. Berry, you had some additional information for us regarding a guest we have today.
A guest to some and a permanent staff member, perhaps to others. Yes, thank you. I'll just take a minute, and before making maybe some more formal introductions, I wanted to just recognize Catherine for a minute. She has now, if we can believe it, been presenting to this committee for a year, joining, yes, December 1st of last year. And so in particular, after her partner, up until the summer, left us for another position, Catherine's been carrying the C of A load at more than her sort of regular share of 5 applications, and has been bringing about 7 to the past few meetings. So we certainly recognize the effort and thank you. And while she's been carrying this load, also finding time to help train our new Committee of Adjustment planner. So with that, I will segue from my right to my left and introduce the committee and the world to Ahmed Shahid. Ahmed joined the city actually just about a year ago, not quite a year. It'll be a year in December. And just shy of 3 months ago, Ahmed received a promotion. He earned a promotion. He was exceedingly qualified to be promoted from his Planner 1 position that he joined the team on, and into the Planner 2 position, and specifically taking on side by side with Catherine at the Committee of Adjustment. So we are delighted to introduce him to you and to continue working with him and getting him ready for January, which is when perhaps his more formal debut with application presentation will commence. So, Ahmed, welcome.
Thank you. Ahmed, a very warm welcome to our committee. I think you'll enjoy working with it. We look forward to working with you. And just to follow up to what you were saying, Ms. Berry, about it does not go unnoticed to, I think, the committee members and to myself, that we come in here each month. We have the applications in front of us. The applications are so well written. You know exactly when you come in what you're dealing with. And what I find interesting is we go month after month. There's no real concerns whatsoever, because the staff has done the work with the applicant and written a wonderful application as far as the details are concerned. And so on behalf of the Committee of Adjustments, Catherine, I want to thank you for the work you do, and Leah, the work you do. It is really noticed, it is appreciated, and it's very well done. So as I say, and I know Lloyd feels the same way, that we're very fortunate to have the staff we do, and very fortunate to have the quality. So Catherine, a very sincere thank you. Committee, I'd like to thank you as well. This is our last meeting of the year. I know it's a volunteer position, and I know you're always well prepared, and your time and your efforts are greatly appreciated. So with that, and Councillor Yeo, we always appreciate your knowledge and the experience you certainly bring to the committee. It's greatly appreciated.
Easy on the knowledge stuff there, Steve.
And to staff, we really, Charlotte does a tremendous job, and she always has us prepared for meetings, and as hard as we might try to get off track, she doesn't let us do that. And Mark, thank you very much, and as I say, I find it a pleasure to come here. I find it a pleasure to work with the people, with the applications, and the staff does a fantastic job. So with that, I want to wish everybody a great holiday, and thank you very much for everything you do. And with that, I'm going to, Mark. Yeah, we talked about the meeting dates. So, okay, do we need to approve those? Okay, so going back to the meeting dates, could I just have a motion to approve those meeting dates? Ms. Richardson? And a seconder, Ms. Archer? All in favor? Great. And there's no further correspondence, Charlotte? Okay, so our next meeting would be Thursday, January 25th at 1 p.m. Boy, that seems like a long way off right now, doesn't it? But it will roll around soon enough. Could I have a motion to adjourn? Ms. Richardson? Councillor Yeo, thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah.